All right, we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Madam Clerk, roll please.
Mayor Pape.
Here.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Here.
Councilmember Hands.
Here.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Here.
Councilmember Leahy.
Here.
Councilmember Neal.
Here.
Councilmember Ryder.
Here.
Councilmember Silvers.
Here.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Here.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item is public items. Members of the public are encouraged to use this time to make comments about matters that do not appear on the agenda. Comments about items on the regular agenda will be taken up as each item is considered. Please note individuals making public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. We did have a sign-up sheet, and currently, we'll go by the order that's listed here. First person up would be Nick Johnson. Mr. Johnson, if you would give your name and address for the record.
My name is Nick Johnson. I live on 8705. Thank you. I live on 8705 West 65th Street, not far from here. As you know, the Turkey Creek Festival was last weekend. While the fest was good, there are a couple of issues I'd like to discuss. Firstly, the crossing guards. I understand they're there to help people cross the street to the park, but I think there's an easier solution. Most people don't know there's more than one way to enter the park. I think it would be much easier if you added funds for a pedestrian crossing to alleviate so much traffic that happens on that road, because Antioch Road is a very busy road. Secondly, there are many people who park their cars in my residence. There are signs stating that it was a residential parking lot. I don't think a lot of people know that, but I know it's not a city-wide issue or anything like that, but I think just for consideration, they take care to notice something like that. I don't know. I hope you will consider this in the future when we have another Turkey Creek Festival next year. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming, and we'll take those things into consideration.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. We have no one else that has signed up at this time, but it does not preclude you from coming forward. Is there anyone else that has a public comment they'd like to make at this time? Okay, I don't see anyone else coming forward, so we will close out the public items. Okay, next item is the consent agenda. All items listed under the heading are considered to be routine by the City Council, may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case that item will be removed and the consent agenda and considered separate. Considering I only have one on there, is there anyone that has any discussion of that before we vote on it? Okay, I see no discussion. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms.
I
Hayes.
move that the council approve consent agenda item number 1.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Ms. Yodridge.
Mr. Mayor, second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, next item up on the agenda is the mayor's report. The first item we have listed this evening is the Visitors Bureau Annual Report. Let's see, Ms. Crane coming forward.
Hello, thank you for having me this evening. Okay. So we'll just get started. This is a review of 2022, last year. starting out with hotel performance in Merriam, it remains consistent. And while projections from Smith Travel Research state that when adjusted for inflation, full recovery may not take place until 2024, so far Merriam this year in first quarter hotel occupancy is running 12% higher than last year with a 3% increase in room rate. So Merriam looks to be recovering slightly faster than the national average. We do still have some challenges in terms of workforce, supply chain issues, inflation, much like all the rest of the business community. Switching over to page 2, some facts and figures for you. As many of you know, we are funded at the Visitors Bureau by the guest tax that visitors pay staying in our 4 hotels. Last year, that collection totaled just over $409,000, which was a little bit of a 1% increase from the year prior. Those guest tax dollars do fund our entire program of work at the Visitors Bureau, special events in Merriam, some economic development activities, and the farmers market activities at the marketplace. Again, as I said earlier, our hotel performance has finally recovered to pre-pandemic levels in both occupancy and average daily rate. So we are finally recovered to the 2019 levels at 65.5%, but we have beat the average daily rate by a couple bucks. So we're climbing, and that's good. Regarding our state data, as you can see towards the bottom of this slide, you can see that most of the 33 million visitors to Kansas come from within the state, while 7 other nearby states account for most of the remaining percentage of our visitors. Each party in Kansas stays about 1.63 days, and 62% of those visitors stay in a hotel. Top visitation months in order are December, August, January, and then July, where visitors will spend an average of $261 per day per person while here. Lastly, our Kansas visitors contribute $700 million in state and local taxes, and without these dollars, each Kansas household would have to be taxed an additional $613 to replace these monumental visitor tax dollars. Going on to our highlights from last year, we just did a breakdown of our top 5 things that I'd like to share with you. Our community and visitor guide took home a regional award from the Greater Kansas City chapter of PRSA, which is Public Relations Society of America. And we also snagged a first place Savvy Award from the City County Communications Marketing Association, also known as 3CMA. Our digital ad performance finally ramped back up and outperformed previous years with impressions and clicks with a 16% increase over the prior year. Many of you, I think, were aware of our 10 Parks in 10 Weeks campaign that we launched last year just as a way to get people in all of the Merriam parks and not just the most popular ones. And so we did a 10-week campaign where we featured a park each week in Merriam while engaging our local residents and visitors to park hop all summer long. And at the end, we had a little prize pack that we gave away. So also on our top 5, the carnivores from the American Meat Science Association came to Merriam last year in August, and they were a wonderful group to host. We worked with them for about a year with their room nights, meal gatherings, and a few jokes from the mayor during his welcome to the group. This convention plans to come back in future years because of Merriam's excellent hospitality, according to them.
My jokes.
And your jokes, no doubt. And lastly, we are very active in our regional associations, especially our state tourism region, the Northeast Kansas tourism region. So we all traveled to Abilene last year for the state's first media showcase, and we wowed more than 40 journalists, influencers, photographers, and freelancers with our blend of attractions, nature, shopping, dining, and more. These opportunities allowed us to showcase Merriam in a collaborative and affordable, AKA free way. So moving forward, as we moved ahead, we will be have launched the Merriam Hotel Lodging Improvement Grant, designed to assist our aging hotels with much-needed renovations. We've made a few staffing changes, as you know, and I've become Tourism and Economic Development Manager. Lauren transitioned here to City Hall, and we hired our new graphic designer, Brenna, who's doing very well. We're also partnering this year with Casey Destinations on an influencer meetup designed to enhance our relationship with local influencers who can share and engage with our events, content, and industry news. And lastly, we have created and are distributing welcome packets to new businesses, and we have launched a quarterly economic development newsletter to our business community. So before I leave you, I will just read one final little thing. As visitors are the main driver behind our work, we recognize and so greatly appreciate the true ambassadors of this community, the residents and local businesses who share our wonderful city with newcomers each and every day. In fact, we know that a recommendation from a friend, a family member, or a colleague is one of the leading referral sources for people visiting our state, second only to your personal past experiences. For that, we say thank you for working alongside us to make Merriam just right for guests in our community. That's all I have for you this evening. Does anyone have any questions?
Congratulations on your awards. And are we to address you as Director Crane now, or this new title that you just told us about?
Whatever you'd like to call me,
All right.
I'll answer.
Are there any questions for, I'm going to call it Director Crane. Okay. Go ahead, Ms.
I
Haynes.
have one. Did you get any counts of how many people participated in the 10 Parks in 10 Weeks? So you have something to say, this was really successful or not?
It was mostly a social media campaign, so the engagement was pretty high, but it wasn't like X number of people to participate. Every week it was different. But we did have, the winner of our campaign was so engaged that when we drew the randomized generator number, there was no doubt she was going to win because she was very active and gave us a lot of really great content and photos and was so happy to take her
So
little girl.
that's how you stuffed that ballot box?
There's no stuffing of ballot boxes.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions for Director Crane? Okay, I see none. Thank you for your report. Is that it? Is there anything else, or you have something additional?
I have
For us?
nothing.
No?
No.
Okay. Thank you. All right, looks like the next item up, which I'm always excited to be able to do, is a proclamation from the mayor. And it turns out that this is Public Works Week. And so I'm just going to read this proclamation on behalf of our great Public Works team. Whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, with the theme, Connecting the World Through Public Works. And whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vitally important to the high quality of life and well-being of the people of the city of Merriam. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public's interest for the residents of the city of Merriam to learn and understand the importance of public works and public works programs in the community. And whereas, in the city of Merriam, I urge all citizens to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Now therefore, I, Bob Pate, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of Merriam, Kansas, do hereby proclaim May 21st through the 27th, 2023, as National Public Works Week, proclaim this 22nd day of May, 2023. Bob Pate, Mayor. So we'll get you a copy of that.
I think they should all stand up.
Yeah. Could we, all of our Public Works people stand up? Awesome. Oh, Butcher, okay, I'll bring the proclamation. Come on forward, guys.
Right.
Stand behind you. They can't see me. We're sticking you up front, Randy. It's fine. Feeling like we like each other.
Yeah. Well, then.
Oh.
I'll grab those. Thank you. All right. Okay, it looks like the next item on the agenda for the mayor's report is the Mark Solid Waste Management District Green Event Award. Okay, we have.
Good evening. Jennifer Jones-Lacey, Assistant City Administrator. It is my honor to present you all with the coveted 2022 Go Green. We got the, the Mark Solid Waste District Management District Award for Outstanding Green Event. And we received this award, it was later last year, but we just got this very fine plaque delivered to us last week. And I wanted to share it all with you all and thank everybody on the council who supported this event and all of our staff. This is an event that comprised 9 of the Northeast Johnson County communities, and it drew 400 to 500 different participants last year. It was the first year that we did it. We intend to do it every single year, and this year it's going to be on September 23rd. And we are expanding it. And this year I am also on the steering committee and I'm helping with the children's events. And so we will, in addition to having children's events, a bunch of vendors, entertainment, we're also going to have workshops this year, which is new. And hopefully it will be another fantastic event. And then the following Saturday, we are having our Northeast Johnson County recycling event. So this is replacing the event that we had with Shawnee last year. And it's going to be, again, all of the Northeast Johnson County communities. It'll be at Nations Holding again. So we'll give you more information on that. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention that we did, in fact, win this fabulous award for all to see. And whenever we get some sort of location that we can share all of our fabulous accolades, we will place this prominently. Until then, it'll probably be sitting in my office. So anyway, thank you very much.
Any questions for Assistant Administrator Jones-Lacey? Okay. All right. No pictures? Okay. Guess not. We don't rate, okay. All right, well, thank you. That's a nice award. Okay. Okay, it looks like other things that I always like to take this time just to talk about some of the things that I and the council have been doing over the past 2 weeks, just to say that we don't just show up twice a month here to these meetings. There's a number of other things that entail that we do. I and Councilmember Hands attended the grand opening celebration at Advent Health Behavior Services, 7301 East Frontage. It's the building's been, I guess, refurbished or redone, and it's very, very nice. It's still going to be building on some more, but that is up and running. Yeah, so I and Councilmember Hands attended the Cub Scouts Awards ceremony over at Antioch Park. I and several council members attended the public service thank you event. That was a coffee truck that was there thanking all of the public employees. And I know people came and went, so sorry if I didn't want to list anybody's name out on that one. But I and Councilmember Hands attended the Flags for Freedom Committee meeting, which is our Flags for Freedom that goes on every year during the 4th of July. And we're getting some of the things accomplished down there to put that event on. Councilmember Yodrich attended the agenda setting meeting with Chris, Engel, and I this last week. And I met with a Merriam business owner over concern they had expressed. I and Councilmember Chavetta attended the Northeast Chamber Legislative Breakfast at the Merriam Community Center, where the legislators there wrapped up their session. It's over for this time, and they talked about the bills that passed, bills that didn't pass, bills that have been vetoed. That's all those are available if you want to know more about those. Okay, I attended the Northeast Johnson County Mayor's Luncheon, where important mayor stuff goes on there. Plus, we get to eat, so that's always good. I attended the funeral of Johnny Peters, a longtime business owner downtown Merriam Fee, to be missed, and we send our condolences out to the family for that. I and council members Cowdaw and Yodrich were at the Turkey Creek Festival. I don't know if any other council members were there. That was on council member Chavetta is shaking her head. Bruce? Yeah, I got him listed. Jacob was driving? Okay, thank you, Jacob. So anyway, I guess a lot of us attended that event. That's a big event for the city, and it took place over at Antioch Park last Saturday from 10 to 4, and it was, I think there was 100,000 people over there. It was a lot of people. Maybe, okay, there might be Might be a little bit more than what was there. But there were a lot. And I was responsible for the weather. So you remember, it was a really nice day, and that was my job. But anyway, it was, big thank you goes out to the entire staff, not just Anna's department itself, but the police department, the public works, the fire department, everybody in the city had a role in that. And so I would encourage all of our directors out there to go back and tell your employees that we as the city council and as the city appreciate all their efforts. And I know it's a lot to get that thing sponsored and done, and they did an excellent job. So kudos to them. There's just two other things I just want to mention is just to acknowledge that Deputy Chief Alan Long is in the white shirt is over there from Overland Park Fire Department. He is currently our acting chief for the Overland Park Fire Department. At least we'll be seeing him for the next couple meetings, and welcome, Chief Long. And of course, we have a fill-in for Orion today. It's Seth is over here going to be answering all of our technical questions here for us this evening. So I think that's all I have for the mayor's report. Next item up is council items, and that's first thing on that is consider approval of the City Council Policy 7.0 Tax Increment Financing Policy. Looks like we've got City Administrator Mr. Engel coming forward.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Next item, as the Mayor mentioned, is approval of City Council Policy 7.0, which is our tax increment finance policy. The existing TIF policy, for short, has been in effect since 1997. That policy has done a pretty good job of guiding the city through several major redevelopment projects to include Merriam Town Center, Merriam Point, Merriam Village on Johnson Drive, and the recent Merriam Grand Station development over at Antioch and Shawnee Mission Parkway. Each one of those has served the residents and the economic development of our community very well with the existing TIF policy. However, as we went through the Merriam Grand Station negotiations, which took the better part of 2 years, there were a lot of items that came up where we realized that there might be some different perspectives. There might be some lessons learned that weren't in that TIF policy that we learned from past development deals, and really just new additions that we felt were important to the community that needed to be reflected that actually showed up in that deal, but they weren't listed in the policy. And the difficulty that creates is that when you sit down and you say, hey, here's our policy, this is what's going to guide our negotiation with you as a developer, and then we start asking them to put things in there and say, no, you need to have this, you need to have that in there, and it's not actually in the policy, creates a little bit of a disconnect. So one of the things that we pledged during that process is that we would come back once we got done with that, and we would essentially crack open this policy. We'd take a look at it, and we would make sure that it reflects the current policies, wants and desires, as well as those of the community and the development environment. How we did that is we essentially looked at the current policy, or the old policy, if you will. We took some policy samples from a lot of our neighbors. Our policy looked very similar to several of our neighbors, just simply because they were all written by the same folks at Kutek Rock. So 4 of our neighboring communities had verbatim and still have the exact same policy. But we did look at some of the other more active communities, your Overland Parks, your Lennoxes, your Shawnees, the ones that actually are pulling development deals almost on a weekly or monthly basis, to look at some of the things that were in there, and if we could integrate some of the language that was in there, if we could make some statutory references that we could pick up from them as some best practices, just to make a little bit more efficient policy. We took those things and we integrated those with some of the conversations that we'd had as part of the Merriam Grand Station development. Put all those into a new formed policy, shared that with the council at a work session in February with some decision points, had a presentation and said, these are some things we can go this way or that way. We can have some things, do we want these to be requirements, or do we want these things to be things that we would view more favorably? Because again, the difference between shall and should sometimes can create some issues. So I think the council did a really, really good job of weighing the things that were important to them, and if they were absolutes or if they were things that we just want to make sure that the development community knows are important to us and our residents. And staff went back, crafted a updated version of the draft policy, draft at that time, draft still, shared that with Joe Serrano at Kutek Rock. He gave some input, some adjustments, made sure that we had some legal and statutory references that were in there that were updated and correct. And then at his suggestion, we shared it with Jeff White, who's our financial advisor at Columbia Capital. He does a lot of these deals also. And so there's lots of things that he sees in these development deals that he often brings to the conversation. Brian can attest to. He's kind of the guy that's like, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. You don't want to do that. Don't do that. And so we said, okay, what are all those things? And let's see if those are gauged in our policy correctly and emphasized enough. And so what you have before you now is the result of that policy. A lot of it is the same. I think we added some more process in there that wasn't in the old policy, I think, which was good, just so everyone understands what the process is as we go through it, not just the elected officials, but our residents and the development community. But one of the newest things that we added there, I listed 4 here, really new, I would say, substantial changes that I think reflected a lot of our experience of the last several years, last several development deals. The first one, we added a section of what we will not reimburse. The old policy said we will reimburse these things, and those are basically tied to statute. They were the things that we could legally reimburse. But I think from the conversations that we've had the last several years, there were things that were important to the council to make sure that we share with folks we're not going to reimburse for. Those things being property taxes was a big one that we heard. Developer fees and fees to finance the project. So if I'm a developer and I have to borrow money and I'm paying a 6% interest on it, in the past, developers would come in and say, well, since you're not giving me all that money up front, I've got to finance it. Reimburse me for the cost of financing the project. We did not do that at Merriam Grand Station. We made that very clear. We haven't done that the last several, but it was not listed in our policy as something we would not do. So we felt it was important to include something like that in there. Another one is the city's intent to limit TIF agreements to 50% of the new increment, as opposed to just saying, hey, we have 100%. We have the opportunity to negotiate that, but we think we should start at 50% and say 50% of the new increment, that's what you should expect from the city council, unless you give us some sort of reason that it should be higher. So don't just come and say, I need 100%. Another piece of that we held the line on the last several development deals was a maximum of 30%. We basically said, we're not going to pay, the city taxpayers, the TIF will not pay more than 30% of the overall cost of developing this property. And we actually put clawback provisions in there that say, if for some reason we find out because of the way that the building reassesses once it's constructed or things like that, that it's going to exceed 30%, we have clawback provisions to say, no, we said 30%. We're taking back some of those incentives. Another updated list that we had was items that the council would view more favorably. These were things that we debated at our work session of should we say shall we say should, and ultimately we decided that these are things that we value. We wanted to see them included in development deals, or we wanted to let the development world, if these are the type of projects you bring forward, you're going to be more apt to have a little bit more of a receptive audience with the council if they include some of these things. Several of those items are help accomplish previously established council goals, meaning like if you brought in something that adhered to, say, the 2040 comp plan, if you brought in something that had some sort of sustainability, bikeability that are, again, previously established goals, something that show up in the goals and objectives, the council would view those more favorably. Again, not a guaranteed that there will be a development deal, but the council would view them more favorably. Another thing would be growth and economic development, job creation, affordable housing options, projects with local ownership groups. We heard that loud and clear during the last one, that it'd be great if we could pull these deals off with folks that we know are going to be in the metro. And then projects that have quicker or lower payoff expectations. You know, projects, again, that come in at 50% are probably going to be a little bit more viewed more favorably than one that says I need 60 or 70% if we had competing projects, which I hope we have that problem someday, but we don't currently. And then the last one, requirement for applicants to financially participate in our civic, our charitable, our educational, philanthropic, and economic development. So that's that section that we started adding 2 development deals ago where we said, hey, if we're going to partner with you, you need to give back to the community in these different ways. So we have them sponsoring Turkey Creek, we have them sponsoring Merriam Drive, we have them sponsoring utility assistance, sponsorships down for rec scholarships, being a member of the chamber, being a member of Shawnee Mission Education Foundation. So we require them, and we do not TIF reimburse those. That comes out of their pocket. We do not let them pay for those things with TIF. So those are really the most substantial changes between the existing draft, or the existing policy and the draft policy that's before you this evening. Other than that, it's a pretty standard policy. Been reviewed by legal on several cases and professionals that we use when we start negotiating these deals. Happy to answer any questions about any of that.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Engel? Oh, my gosh. I know you've been working on this and staff, and
been a
we
while.
appreciate all the work you guys have done. It looks like a really good policy, which is evidently being evidenced by nobody asking any questions up here at this time, so.
Well, I do think you did a great job of incorporating all of our we wants into what you first presented. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Appreciate the feedback. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there were no questions from Mr. Engel, I would entertain a motion for this. Okay, Ms. Shadridge.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approves City Council Policy 7.0 Tax Increment Financing Policy.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, Ms. Shavetta.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
I'm going to vote aye, although I wish we'd gone a little farther in a couple of areas, but in the process, this seems to be what consensus policy for right now should be, and I vote aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Engel. It looks like the next item up would be the Planning Commission. It looks like we have Director Dyer coming to the podium. Do you want me to tell you what they're here for, or are you going to tell us?
Excuse me, Mayor, council members, Brian Dyer, Community Development Director. This evening for you have a preliminary development plan from your planning commission. And let's see here. And what the preliminary development plan is for property located at 5452 Antioch Road. You see it up there on the screen. It's property that is located just north of Cinemark. Right here is Cinemark. Here's Antioch. It's the undeveloped piece of property that's located on the west side of the road. Some of you all may remember about 6, 7, 8 years ago, there was a couple houses on there that were demolished. And since that point in time, it has remained undeveloped. The property owner, Carbank, is requesting a preliminary development plan for the primary purposes of grading the property. Let's see, get a better look here. So primary purposes of grading the property. Again, if you're familiar with the site, as you go by the site, pretty much the thing that everybody sees is a significant retaining wall there. So Carbank is proposing to remove that retaining wall, grade the property down to essentially the level of the sidewalk. The main purpose of this is to make the property more marketable, make it more appealing, make it so folks have a better idea of what potentially could happen up there. The property is zone plan unit development general, and so because of that and because of city requirements that require a development plan, that's why they have brought forth a preliminary development plan for the significant grading. Significant grading of this nature does require city approval. And so I think it's important to note that this is just for grading. So if there's ever in the future when there's a desire to do actual vertical construction on there, it will have to come back through the same process, a preliminary development plan and a final development plan as well. I do know they are also working with Public Works, with Superintendent Randy Fine in regards to perhaps partnering with the city, getting some conduit installed there when that retaining wall comes down. There's not conduit there right now for the streetlights, simply because putting underneath that wall, I believe, was going to be rather difficult at the time, so the decision made not to go underneath the wall. So they have been in conversations with Public Works over that. So Planning Commission held a public hearing on this. There was no comments at that public hearing at their last meeting, and they unanimously recommended approval of this. Staff also recommends approval as well. The applicant is here to answer any questions, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the council may have at this time.
Mr. Neal, go ahead.
Now, the same property owner, do they also own the, there's a structure just to,
This one right here?
yeah, just to the north.
Yes, they do.
Is that in any way involved in this, this particular plan, or is that completely separate?
That is completely separate. So this plan is just for the undeveloped piece right here. It does not include this property to the north. Now, obviously, at some point in time, if they come back and do a larger development plan for the whole property, they certainly could. But at this point in time, it is just for the undeveloped piece.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Dr. Dyer? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Leahy.
It looks like they're gonna probably take some of the trees, but maybe not the last of them on the very west side. Looking at the disturbance plan.
Right. This is probably the best grading plan right here.
But basically north to south.
Right. So there, yep.
Making sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Ms. Shadrich.
I know the animal shelter nearby walks the dogs up and down that sidewalk quite a bit. And so I'm wondering if they've been notified that there's going to be construction in that area and everything, to know if they have to change their route.
Depending, obviously.
Are they close enough that they've been notified?
No, they would not receive notification of this. They'd be outside the notification area. But at such point in time as the construction activity occurs, obviously they will be put into
They'll see it.
Contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah, the contractor will put forth a plan for how to do the pedestrian rerouting. And so they will likely be, my guess is
There's a plan that shows a temporary crosswalk
does it?
on the north side of the.
Yeah, I don't think I included on this. So, right, they'll be showing how to handle that. Right there it is.
Right.
Yep.
It's not required, but just if the developer hears, it might be a showing of good faith to go ahead and reach out to Great Plains to tell them the plan and show them the temporary crosswalk for Antioch Park.
Okay. Any additional?
I had one more.
Lee?
For the developer, about how long do you think it'll take to grade? A month, 3 weeks, 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a month maybe to be safe, but we're probably gonna wait until the end of the summer so that the seeding will have a better chance, but, I can't imagine.
No, it's not, I mean, weather permitting, of course. Just curious. Thank you.
Do you need him to state his name and address for the record, Madam Clerk? Is that going to be part of the minutes?
I think it's fine.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I see no other questions. I would entertain a motion for this particular item, if anyone is interested in making that motion.
Sure. I thought
Ms.
maybe
Hand,
some
okay.
of Ward 4 people might want to make the motion.
Okay.
but-
Is
or
there anybody
whatever
over there
ward.
in this ward that would like to make the motion? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Shadrich.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation and approve with conditions a preliminary development plan for Car Bank properties grading in a planned unit development general PUDG district located at 5452 Antioch Road, and authorize the mayor to sign the effectuating ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second? Oh, yes, Ms. Ryder.
Mr. Mayor, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Silvers.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, it looks like the next item up is staff informational items. We have a monthly April finance report. Is that Mr. Engel? Okay.
Yeah, Donna is, Director Oliver is out of town, so I will be filling in for her. Finance report is in the packet. We are above. We have brought in more revenue than projected, and we have spent less money than budgeted. So we're in a good place this month. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Any questions for Mr. Engel?
I love that I'm getting to ask him these questions.
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay,
Ms. Hand.
the transient guest tax, even though we heard that things are going well, is that a timing issue?
That is a failure to pay issue. And I think that's probably all I can say.
Oh, that sounds mysterious.
Yeah, we're, it's,
Yeah. It's a
we're aware
timing
of it.
issue.
Yeah,
It's a timing
Okay,
issue.
sure, it's a
Timing
timing
Okay.
issue.
issue.
Yeah, it's a timing issue.
Mr.
And then
LaHaye.
the other, oh, sorry.
I just wanted to follow up on the transient guest tax, and if you don't know, that's okay. Is that weighted by month relative to what we expect for visitors?
Yeah,
Or
we
is that
just
just
divide
divide by 12? So it
12.
ebbs and flows till it catches up? Okay.
That's why I thought it was a timing issue.
Okay, Ms. Haynes, go ahead.
And then the court fines, that's surprising. Is that because we're all so well-behaved?
That could be part of it. I think there's also, we have been down some officers, so we've got them distributed differently throughout the department to make sure that we can keep up our service levels, and that may play a role in that also, but.
Okay, thank you.
I met a new officer from Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah,
That is now on
absolutely.
our staff now.
Absolutely.
So
I
we're
think
bringing
just
them in from other states.
Started a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, very good. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Engel? Okay, it looks like you've done an excellent job. More money than we're spending, so that's good. All right, well, let's see. Community development updates. Got Director Dyer coming to the podium.
Yeah, just a few updates. First of all, Merriam Grand Station, obviously, you can see building activity continues over there. Probably the latest milestone that we passed, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that we issued building permits for the two apartment buildings and the parking structure in between that. And we also have gotten approval from KDOT, Kansas Department of Transportation, for the intersection improvements that are going to occur at Shawnee Mission Parkway and EB. That was an important milestone. We've been going back and forth, getting the plans to KDOT specs, so we just got approval of that just last week. So again, another milestone has been met. Project continues to go along as planned and as scheduled. I do want to highlight a few things in regards to our grant program. Our property tax rebate program really has been highly successful this year, especially in consideration to last year. I think a combination of a couple things. One, some great publicity that the communication team has put out for it, and then two, changing and raising or lowering, depending on how you want to do it, the income guidelines, essentially making more folks eligible. So, so far to date, we've served 49 households with that program. And I just want to say, if anybody still is interested in applying to that program, I encourage them to do it sooner than later. We have about $9,000-ish left of funds in that program. So again, if anybody has interest in that program, please make application rather as soon as possible. Our exterior grant program, we are now kind of at the waiting list point. We've allocated a majority of that fund, but again, anybody that has projects that they'd like to get a 30% reimbursement for, please put in an application for that. Our experience has been that as folks will drop off the list above them just because contractors, just for a lot of very good issues. So definitely we try to keep a very robust waiting list on there just to make sure we can get all the funds expended. And then our sustainability program, we still have relatively quite a bit of money left in that. So if anybody, again, is out there looking to do any kind of sustainable projects in their homes, such as improve their windows, insulation, HVAC systems. That's probably the big one that everybody's going to be trying to get into here very soon. So if anybody's got those kind of projects, encourage residents to see community development about that, and we can get them on their way on getting them participating in that program. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council has.
Oh, okay. Ms. Shadrich, go ahead.
What is there a, like a grace period or a waiting period between if you use one of the grants and then use another one? So for example, if you use the home exterior grant and then you want to apply for the sustainability grant, is there a waiting period, or do you?
So for There is not a waiting period between those two programs, but there's a waiting period on the actual program itself. So if you use sustainability funds, you have to wait. We just changed it, so I want to say 5 years, but don't quote me on that. Or if you use residential funds, the same thing. But if you use sustainable funds last year, you can certainly come in and make an application for exterior residential funds and vice versa.
Okay, Mr. Silvers.
Just out of curiosity, how far east and west does KDOT have authority on Shawnee Mission Parkway?
For us, KDOT has authority all the way from the very west on-ramps off of I-35 all the way through town until it gets down to Rainbow Boulevard where it heads up north. So that is it's on the state highway system, and so they have review and control, but really review of all that area.
And it's my understanding that all of our entrances they're okay with what's been devised for Grand.
Yes, that's an excellent question. Yes, they been involved with the process since day one, so they received the planning documents when we send them out, and that's when we started the review of that. So yes, the entrance waypoints, as they were shown and approved by the city council, they are fine with.
Thank you. Any other, go ahead, Ms. Shveta.
I have a question. It's Shawnee Mission Parkway related. When do you know, and it's KDOT probably, but the construction, I can't remember what.
Water one.
That's what I thought.
I
Okay.
will have to see if,
Thank you. It's fine. Oh, great. Okay, cool. Thanks.
so the,
Any other questions? Okay, I see no other questions, Director Dyer.
thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, next items up are just informational items. We got the 5701 committee minutes and the Public Art Committee minutes are in the packet. One of those two separate individuals. If you haven't, does council have any questions on those minutes for either of those directors? Okay. All right. At that point then, I guess I'll ask Mr. Engel if there's anything else come before the council.
Sure, the only two items I have is one, just to echo the mayor's comments to thank Park and Rec and all the volunteers for a fantastic Turkey Creek Fest on Saturday. I don't know if you did the weather, congratulations. It's Chamber of Commerce weather, it's fantastic. And again, thanks to Anna and her staff and the volunteers. We can't do it without the volunteers, so fantastic event on Saturday. Second item is just to remind the council that of the Mark Regional Leadership Award is on June 9th, coming up pretty quick here. That's at the Westin at Crown Center. Mark will be recognizing as one of their leadership awards, retired Overland Park Fire Department Chief Brian Diener, who was our chief for the last about 9 years. That's a luncheon, so it'll be from 11 to 1. Please RSVP with myself or Julie, please, on that item, if you're able to go. Again, recognizing Chief Brian Diener. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Mr. Engel?
June 9th.
June 9th. Okay. All right. Thank you for that information. Having no other business, no executive session this evening, I would entertain a motion. Ms. Shattridge,
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
we have a motion.
I'd be happy to second that.
Okay, and we have a second. Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.